If you're making YouTube videos on your phone, you already have one of the best cameras available. The problem is that most creators don't know that their default iPhone settings are making their videos look amateur. I'm going to walk you through the exact settings I use to turn the iPhone into a pro level YouTube video camera. All right, so the first step is to pick the right camera. And before you jump around and just try to use the selfie camera, that might be something you do by default. It's not really the camera that you want to use because it's going to have much more noise and low quality video. For most YouTube videos, I would suggest using the wide camera, which is the default camera for the iPhone. And it's definitely the one that has the most sharpness and image quality, resolution, and handles noise and low light the best. Sometimes you can get away with the ultra wide as well if you have a pro camera. It's good in high key lighting. So if you're out in the sun or you have a lot of light around, the ultra wide can also look really well if you're doing vlogs or some other stuff. But I don't know if I would go for the telephoto and definitely not the selfie camera. Choosing this wide angle camera will already start you off with an advantage from all the other cameras, and you're going to need to stick with it for each of your shots. That way there's continuity and the image looks the same going from shot to shot. Pro tip here, if you need to monitor yourself because you're not sure the framing of the image or the composition, you can use your Apple Watch here and pull up the camera app, and that'll let you see what your camera is seeing, and you can at least set up a good composition before you hit record. The second step is to lock in your resolution and frame rate. Now, you might have defaulted to shooting 1080p to start with, but I will tell you that will give you a much blurrier and low resolution image than if you change it to 4K. Yes, the file sizes are going to be a little bit bigger on a 4K video file, but the benefits definitely outweigh the file size problem. So let's jump into the settings real fast and I'll show you what I have set up in the camera app. So in the settings, you're going to scroll down to camera and click camera, and then you're going to go to the record video section. Under record video, choose whatever frame rate you want at 4K. So typically on a YouTube video, you're going to shoot 30 frames per second. Now, if you want a more cinematic look, something that's going to look like a film or something like that, you're going to want to use 24 frames because that is typically what those films are shot in. But for the most part, you're going to use 30 frames per second because this is a standard across all broadcast television and a lot of YouTube videos. 60 frames per second is something you would see when recording video games. So if you're doing a gaming channel and you want to match the recorded footage from your game, which is probably recorded in at least 60 frames per second, then I would shoot there, and that way it matches the frame rate. And when you upload it, you don't have any issues with choppy footage or unsynced audio because everything is shot and edited in the same frame rate. 120 frames is when you'd want to do some slow-mo. So if you're shooting something like B-roll or anything else that you want to slow down and post, you could shoot 4K 120 for that as well, but I would definitely not use that for your talking head or just any normal B-roll. One thing to keep in mind, the higher the frame rate, the more frames per second, the higher the file size. So the bigger the file size. So it's gonna really take up space on your iPhone as well as transferring the file to your computer to edit. It just becomes a little bit clunky when you have higher frame rates. So I would keep the 16 to 120 into very specific times that you need it, and then just use 30 or 24 for everything else. All right, step number 3 is stabilize and control the look. So this is going to be a little bit more granular in the effect on the video, but it's something that I think you need to pay attention to, especially if you're walking around with your camera and your iPhone and not really putting it on a tripod. You'll definitely want to look at some of this. So here in the app, we're going to scroll down to the section where you can see a couple of settings. First, I want to note the enhanced stabilization setting. You want to turn this on because this is going to give your footage a smoother feel. Now, it's not doing the action camera type thing where it's really cropping in and trying to stabilize it to the most smooth possibility. What it's going to do is take out the micro jitters and some of the shakes from your hands and things like that. And so that way, each clip is going to be really stable and look really professional. Scrolling down, you're going to want to look at the lock camera. And so I have this on because what this is going to do is it's going to lock on the camera you're using. So if you're using the wide angle camera for your YouTube video, if you zoom in or you do something on the camera app, it's not going to switch which camera you're using. That way, while you're filming, you don't have to worry about it jumping around between different cameras. So we're going to lock the camera on. So with HDR video, I typically keep this off. HDR video is high dynamic range video. So what you're going to see is when you go on social media and you see a video clip that's really bright, it has a ton of intensity on your iPhone, like if you're scrolling through Instagram or whatever, and it has a ton of brightness and saturation compared to everything else on the platform, that's a HDR video. video. And what that's doing is it's taking your HDR screen on your phone and it's using the full capabilities of it. The problem is most other devices don't have HDR screens, like your computer or your TV. They do not have HDR screens. So the footage on those devices are going to be very desaturated, low in brightness, and they're going to look bad. They just look off. So I typically keep this off because I know that the majority of people watching my videos, or at least half of the people watching my videos, are not watching on an HDR screen. Therefore, it's going to look poor. But if you do it with it off and you just do an SDR, standard definition, dynamic range, then you're going to get colors and contrast, and the lighting is going to look good on any device. It might not be super bright like it would be on an HDR display, but it's going to look good and be the exact same across all different devices. So I typically keep HDR video off. The other thing you're going to want to keep off is auto FPS. You do not want your videos changing frames per second. That is one of the worst things you can do when you're filming. So you're going to want to turn that off. You don't want that changing. You want your frames per second set and always the same to whatever you set it. Then the last thing we're going to look at is the lock white balance feature. You're going to want to turn this on. You do not want your white balance switching from, different color temperatures during the video, because then it shifts from, warm color to a cool color. You don't want that white balance shifting. Now, there are a couple instances you might want that. Let's say you're vlogging and you're going from inside your house where it's kind of the warm color temperature lights to daylight outside, and you kind of walk outside. That would be one moment where you might want it on to switch during the video clip, because then it's going to kind of white balance and keep it all looking somewhat similar. So you can keep it on if you need it for those type of shots, but for the most part, you're going to want this setting off. All right, step 4 is to unlock advanced features. Here is where you're going to kind of dive into some stuff that maybe is a little less beginner friendly, and it's going to bring your image to the next level. So if you want this, then pay attention here. I'm going to show you how to get past the iPhone default, sharpened, really contrasty look, and give you something to work with in post that will give you a little bit more of a pro finish. One of the first things to talk about with the newer iPhones this year, the 17 and the 16, you're going to look for ProRes and log. So in the settings, go back and go down to formats, click it, and scroll all the way to the bottom, and there you'll see an Apple ProRes toggle. If you turn it on, it gives you the capability of shooting Apple ProRes and log footage. Now, I do not use this because Apple ProRes is a massive file. It's very lowly compressed, so there's a lot of data. It gives you a great image and much better than if you're compressing it to H.265 or anything else, but it's just so much space. It takes up so much space. Like, I'm talking 10 times more than your other videos. So I don't use Apple ProRes, even though that would give you the next level professionalism. I just don't think it gives you enough to justify it. To shoot log, which is what you really want to shoot if you're going to kind of up the level of professionalism, it gives you a lot more color depth and lighting information or exposure information that you can then bring into post and color grade really well. I'm going to download the Blackmagic camera app. Okay, so let's open that up here. The Blackmagic camera app is a free app, and it gives you the capability of shooting in log without needing to shoot an Apple ProRes. And this is huge. So when it's open, the first thing you do, I'm not going to talk about the interface. I'm just going to go straight to settings, and I'm going to go to the record section. I'm going to make sure we're recording to H.265, so HEVC. That is going to be a highly compressed file, so it's going to be a much smaller file size, but very good quality. And I'm going to set the bitrate to max at 54 megabits per second. And then obviously I want to shoot in 4K, so that's going to be selected. Color space is where you want to switch to Apple Log-HDR. So this is going to give you the capability of shooting Apple Log without needing to shoot ProRes, which is huge. And this is going to give you a lot of flexibility in post. Now, again, this is more professional feature. It's another step in post, but I'm telling you, if you get it right and you're able to, use a LUT and some other things to make your image come back to life, it's going to give you a ton of flexibility with your image. So that's the main thing with this app. I'm not going to show you everything about this app. I'll probably make another video on this entire app and how to use it. And the last little pro tip to help you make your videos on your iPhone a little bit more professional is to use an external mic instead of the mic on the camera itself. Now, the mic on the iPhone does a really good job of taking out all the extra noise and making your sound of your voice really prominent in the video, but it never will do as good as something that you can clip right on your shirt or put really close to your mouth. And, I suggest using something from DJI. They have the new Mic 3 that came out, and it's a really small, excellent audio device and microphone. And so I think that would be what I would suggest. You can also use something else like a boom mic or, a studio mic like what I'm using right here. But any extra external mic outside of it that can plug into your iPhone will give you that much better and more professional audio. Okay, so hopefully this helps you get a little bit more professional videos out of your iPhone. Before, you might have had shaky, flat, amateur, oversaturated, and sharpened clips, but now hopefully you have something that is exactly what you need it to be. You have all the settings to the place that you want them to be, so your image can come out consistent every single time, as well as being able to shoot in higher quality video files with log and things like that. So hopefully this was helpful to get you to that place. If there's something that I missed on this list and going over, comment that below. Ask those questions below in the comments. I'd love to chat with you down there. And if you want to take the guesswork out of making YouTube videos, join me inside the Creator Lab, which is a community I host over on School. And this is just a place for creators to experiment, learn more, grow with each other, and get feedback. So if you're interested, the link is in the description below. If you found this video helpful and you want to learn more, click over here on this video to learn exactly step-by-step how I edit my iPhone footage and color grade it in DaVinci Resolve. I'll see you over there.